Hey, it's Mark Striegel hanging with Beau Brent from the band Ferret, who is planning something really, really cool for this June in New York City and Brooklyn, right, Beau?
Yep, that is right. How you all doing?
I'm doing great and very excited. Remind me of the exact date. Is it June 27th?
So Saturday, June 27th at
Yes.
the Meadows in Brooklyn, New York
And
is the
this is
first ever New York City Glam Metal Fest.
I cannot wait for this. I mean, uh, if you know, let me just start with Heaven's Edge. I used to go see this band when I was just a teenager in a club down in Philly called the Empire Rock Club, which, man, they would just pack that place. I was convinced they were going to be like the next biggest band ever. And while they did achieve some success, they never quite were filling arenas, but so happy to see that they're one of the headliners at your festival, right?
Correct. They actually the very last headliner. They're going to
Okay.
be capping the night off.
Cool. And there's so many great bands playing the festival. I want to talk to you about some of the other ones, like your band, Ferret. Let's start there. This is a band that I'll be honest, I didn't know a lot. If I'm going to be totally honest, I didn't know anything about you guys until you were all over the news. I mean, I heard it on like 1010 Wins. It was in the newspaper because you got, and I guess the band in general got an award from White Castle, like the official White Castle, the restaurant that I've been loving since I was a kid.
So it's funny how life works, right? You work
Yeah.
hard, you write all this music, this and that, and then things gotta to get a little more serious because of something like this. So on the album we released last year, which is called Glamdemic, the very last song is basically about getting hammered and going from Duff's, the metal bar in Brooklyn, to the White Castle on Queens Boulevard, which is a trek that me and a bunch of the other guys in the band have taken many times, and our friends. And we've always been. I can talk for me personally, but even all the other guys separately, I didn't grow up with them. We're all big White Castle guys. We always love White Castle, going back to college days. You get drunk, you 2, 3 in the morning. You know how it is. So, one thing led to another, and we just decided to write a song, and it kind of developed into one of those like it's not even like most of the other songs in the record. It's kind of almost like a Coverdale era Deep Purple type song about, it's like 7 minutes long. It's different parts to it, and it's basically just going to White Castle. And it got on their radar, and one thing led to another, and we got inducted into the White Castle Cravers Hall of Fame. So, on the boxes, when they
Right.
give like the little stories, I never really paid attention to them a couple years ago. And then I saw what it was. I was like, oh, wow, Alice Cooper's in the Hall of Fame. Oh, Fat Joe is in the Hall of Fame. Oh, some random person's in the Hall of Fame. Like, oh, all right, this is kind of interesting. So I got on their radar, and they flew me and one of the guitar players out to Columbus, Ohio. There was a whole ceremony.
Wow.
And we went to the headquarters. We got, of course, we went and got crazy out there. Everyone else was more normal people. Me and him went out there, and we would deck to the nines. We didn't do the business casual dress code, and I always put it this way: if there wasn't photographic evidence of it, I wouldn't believe it myself. It's that outrageous. If this was like
Yeah.
25 years ago and someone told me this story, I'd be like, yeah, okay, but no. And we're on the White Castle boxes now, so sometime and forever. Like if you get those boxes, some of them go back to like 2002 or something like that. Once they're in circulation, they're in circulation. So be on the lookout for them. And for anyone listening, if you get one of those White Castle slider boxes, take a photo of it with yourself in it, send it to us on social media, and we send you a copy of our newest EP that came out last October. That's been kind of like a little gag we've been doing for the last number of months.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're there, they're out there. I've gotten them myself in the
Right
wild.
on. Right on. And the band Ferret, just for people who maybe don't know the history, I'm one of them. So explain a little bit of the history of the band. You guys are from New York City, from Brooklyn, Queens area, is that correct? And
I'm
let's
in
talk about the
Queens.
formation.
Yeah, I'm in Queens. There's actually a bunch of guys in Jersey at this point. So look, we've had people in and out. I'm the constant original member. I'm the vocalist. And I'm not exactly Bruce Dickinson. I fall firmly in the Stephen Pearcy, Alice Cooper school of singing. So and I'm not those guys. Let's not get crazy here. But I'm a good performer, I think. And I've been writing these songs with different guys for the last number of years. Guys coming in and out. Like how one guitar player just left because he's having a kid. The old guitar player came back. Nothing juicy, no drama, just life stuff. And the last couple of years, the pandemic like absolutely murdered us. Like we had a lot of we had a lot of momentum before the pandemic, and that's when a lot of these issues started rearing their heads. Like people leaving the band because of life stuff, and it took a little bit of time to get back after that. Had to bring a couple new members in, but we're back, and we had an album come out in April of 2024 called Glamdemic. It wasn't quite China's Democracy, but it took a solid 6 years to come out.
Right on.
Well, I guess like 4 or 5 years. There's the normal 2 year period and then the delay period. Um, but it was well received, and we've been trying to build up the momentum again. We're not quite where we were before that, but the difference between now and pre-pandemic is there's a lot of newer bands now. A lot of bands are popping up playing 80s style metal, glam metal, 80s type hard rock. Like pre-pandemic, we would play shows in Brooklyn and Queens. We would sometimes play with death metal bands, black metal bands, because there wasn't, and I love that type of music, but there wasn't really anyone to fit it to play with, and we were trying to avoid playing with and I'm not trying to rip on anything, but we were trying to avoid playing with new metal and
Right.
modern rock type bands. And suddenly there's a plethora of bands. Like if you told me like 10 years ago, I'd be starting this festival and there'd be a laundry list of like 10, 15 bands waiting to get on the festival. I'd be, yeah, right. Who are these bands? But no, and they're good. But most of them are really good. Like you talked about some of the other bands in the festival. Snow White, Breaker, Ready to Strike, Tyken, Wanted. These are all bands that just popped up over the last 5 years or so, and they're all really good. I
Okay.
wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't book if it wasn't good. Put it that way.
Right on.
There's
And
no money to
let's
be made
hold
here.
that thought because I
Yeah.
do want to
Okay.
come back and talk about the
Sure.
bands, talk about the festival. But if you wouldn't mind, I would love to
Sure.
share one of your songs, one of your Ferret songs. The band is
Okay.
Ferret, two capital T's at the end, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I think you sound great vocally. I've been listening to it on the songs on Bandcamp. Are the tunes up on the streaming services?
Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
Okay.
Spotify. All the streaming services. We have vinyl and CDs and stuff because I'm people like me that are obsessed with collecting. But we're cognizant of the fact that most people don't listen that way anymore. So we're on all the streaming services. We're on Bandcamp, YouTube.
Okay.
Um, yep.
So tell me,
iTunes.
tell me, Beau Brent of Ferret, where is the best place people can get in touch with you guys online? That's the first question. And the second question is what song do you want to play for the listeners?
Okay. I mean, honestly, I run the social media. Instagram is easier to follow probably than Facebook these days. A lot of times when I'll get a Facebook message in the ferret page and it'll fall into the abyss. But we're pretty approachable, just be normal, you know. Just don't be weird. But
Right.
we have a Bandcamp page. We have all the stuff. There's email links on there. I think we're pretty easy to get in touch with. You got in touch with us pretty easily. And yeah, no, Bandcamp, Instagram, all the usuals. Nothing out of the ordinary. Now, as far as songs go, I would say probably one of the songs off of the Glamdemic album. These have probably become the two signature songs. Would be either "Don't Tell Jen," which we had a music video for, which I'll admit was haphazardly shot because of the lineup changes and the time crunch and the pandemic. Next album, we're gonna do a better video, but we did what we could. And or the album, the title track, Glamdemic. Those are probably the two most well received. Glamdemic's probably my favorite of the two, but on that album, most of the songs are pretty solid. So,
Let's do
start
Glamdemic because
start one
I've
of
been
those.
listening to this stuff. I like that song a lot. Let's share that with the listeners of the podcast.
Do
If
it.
you're watching the YouTube version of this, you're going to need to pull up the Talking Metal podcast in order to hear this song. We're hanging with Beau Brent of the band Ferret. Okay, so we'll drop the song in there.
Okay.
I'm Mark Striegel hanging with Beau from the band Ferret, a New York City based, sounds like some of the guys are in Jersey based band that I'm loving that's keeping the spirit of hard rock, of glam metal, of hair metal, if you will, that sound that we got back in the 80s and early 90s alive. And Beau, you're doing this not only with your band, but this great festival that I want to mention. The official name, the Glam Metal New York. What is it? What's the official name
It's
of the
pretty
festival?
simple, just the New York City Glam Metal Fest.
Yeah.
If it takes off, I'll have to actually look into trademarking and that type of stuff. But
Right on.
for now, I'm
Right.
not gonna get ahead of myself. Year one, New
New
York City
York
Glam Metal
City
Fest.
Glam Metal Fest.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you were mentioning earlier some of the younger bands, which I, as an older guy, love hearing, want to talk more about that. But first, let's talk about, Heaven's Edge, definitely an older band. I used to go see them when I was a kid. If you don't know Heaven's Edge, go check them out. They're the headliner, Ted Poley. Talk about Ted. I mean, what an amazing history he has. He's playing this with you.
Absolutely. Ted Poley, I met him quite a few times. I'm not saying I'm on a first name basis with him, but very nice guy, very involved with the animal charities and stuff like that, which is how I got into this with him. Um, I'm big on the animals myself. And I just love Danger Danger. And unfortunately, since the pandemic, Danger Danger as an entity hasn't been around. But Ted Poley's been out there. He plays often. He's playing from the heart. He's doing it because he loves it. He doesn't need to be doing this, obviously. He's doing it because he loves it. He's still amazing live. You're gonna hear all the classic Danger Danger songs, and you're gonna hear some deep cuts. It's gonna be great. Like I'm really excited to have Ted Poley on board. I think he's
Yeah.
one of the easiest people to work with. I think I got him on board after like one day.
Right
So.
on. Yeah, I'm excited to see him on June 27th at your festival in Brooklyn, New York. Last time I saw him, I think he was with Steve Brown, a trickster at Debonair Music Hall. I'm trying to Tokyo Motor Fist was the
I
name
was
of that
probably
event.
there with
Yeah.
you. Tokyo Motor
Yeah.
Fest, and
Yeah.
was it the Kicks?
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Right on, man. Yeah. And Wicked, I know is playing. I'm familiar with those guys. They're like upstate New York band, I believe. But let's talk about some of the bands I'm not familiar with that you mentioned that get me really excited hearing that these are younger bands. What are we talking? 20, 30 something?
Some of them I barely could drink. It's crazy. I always say like I joke around. This was God's way of smacking me, right? Like at my age, right? I'll be full disclosure. Like most of the guys in front of late 30s, some 40, okay,
Right.
like 40 flat, right? Our generation, there really wasn't a lot of bands. Like I said earlier, we were playing with death metal bands, black metal bands, this and that. Suddenly, there's a plethora of these young bands in their early 20s, mid 20s tops. The band Wanted, for example, they are amazing. They're out of Detroit.
And they're
We
coming
played with
down to the
them,
festival.
yeah, and we played with them in November at Lucky 13s. And number one, they were very professional, the way they carried themselves, the way they spoke, the way they handled business with us. Secondly, the songwriting's phenomenal. Then I find out the main guy is 21 years old. I'm like, holy crap. I think he was like 26, 27, no. Um, Snow White, some of the people in the band aren't even 21. It's crazy.
Wow. Wow.
And it's authentic. I don't see these people doing this for a year or two and then moving on to something else. Like it really seems like they're into this. This scene is kind of revitalizing, which is something that was been needed desperately. There was that little revitalization mostly in Europe in the mid 2000s, right? Like Crash Diet, Crazy Licks,
Yeah, especially over in
uh,
like Sweden and
Reckless
Scandinavia. Yeah.
Love. But even those bands sounded kind of different, right? Like they might have more of like a punky vibe to a lot of them. And it didn't really translate over here in the United States. Suddenly I'm seeing it. And it's important because, M3 has, I love going to M3 every year. I've never been to the one in the mountains, that does look good.
Right.
But M3
I'm thinking of
specifically
going
is,
to that this year. I'm
yeah,
trying
me
to,
too.
yeah, I would like to
Thinking
host
about
that.
it.
If anyone from that festival is listening, I'd love to be there. But yeah,
So M3 has been very resistant to add the younger bands over the years, which is kind of a problem because if you might have seen the M3 lineup this year, there's a lot of good bands on it, but there's a lot of repeats. It's only one day, and I can't help but think if they would have added some of these younger bands maybe 6, 7 years ago, not all at once, because I know people don't want change, but maybe gradually mix in a couple, that you'd have a healthier mix of younger bands and legacy bands, and that's kind of what we're trying to achieve here with the New York City Glam Metal Fest. I wanted to get some of these, older bands, but not the bands that play every single year. Like some of the, like Heaven's Edge hasn't played New York City in over 30 years.
Wow.
Wow.
One of those guys
Well,
lives in New York too, I think.
yeah, Dave Rath lives in New York.
Yeah,
He's actually the one that suggested the name for me for the fest. I had something a little more convoluted at first, and he's like, he knows what he's doing. He works in A&R and
right.
whatnot, so I trusted him. Rough House, right? The band that used to be Teased, then they became Rough
Yep.
House. They haven't played in New York City in over 35 years.
Wow.
So the late 80s is the last time they played in New York City. They played at Dingbats in Jersey, but New York City proper haven't played in over 30 something years. So I wanted to bring in a couple of bands that haven't played in a while that people would be excited for. Nothing against, I love like Enough's Enough, Pretty Boy Floyd, Winger, but like, those bands tour fairly frequently. I was hoping to try to get bands that don't play that often. So it's more of an attraction. Now, I'm no professional. This is the first time I ever did a festival like this. I've only booked shows individually with bands like Breaker and Wanted and stuff like that. So I was trying to keep it mostly East Coast. If this one goes well, maybe next year I'll get a little ambitious. Because obviously there's a bunch of West Coast bands such as Vane, Babylon AD, Femme Fatale that haven't played here in a billion years that people are dying to see. And by people, I mean me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which
Absolutely.
is, let's be realistic, that's why this is happening. Another band from Jersey. I didn't hit them up this year because I just took who are we? But I'm hoping that maybe this gets good enough that maybe next year they'll consider it. Taiketo, you know,
Yep.
Taiketo will play those cruises. They'll play in Germany, but they're from New Jersey. They don't play in New Jersey, so I don't know. Maybe I'll be the one to try to get them out. But there's a lot of these bands. They're just like great bands that. And going back to the younger generation, they love these bands. They know them. Um, I usually hate streaming and Spotify, this and that. I collect records. I don't like what's done with artists in terms of like, artists not making money. But the one bright spot is these 22-year-old kids are discovering Shark Island. They're discovering Euphoria, like, bands that they would not have in a thousand years have known without that. So as much as there's a dark side to social media and the Spotify and the streaming, this and that, there's also a positive, and that's the positive. I think a lot of these younger bands and a lot of these younger kids are being influenced by things that they would not have found if they were just listening to Rat and Dokken and the bands that everyone knows. So, so yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, in the future, we might get some of those bands here. But take it
Yeah.
one thing at a time. Let's about this year first, right?
Right on.
So,
And New York City's Glam Metal Festival taking place June 27th, a Saturday. Things get going, what, the early afternoon, run well into the
yeah.
evening, I'm
So
sure.
doors are at 1 o'clock. First band's at 1:40. Now, unfortunately, this is a New York City thing, and you live in the area, so you know this. On weekends especially, a lot of these venues they like to double dip, and I don't blame them. Things are tight, so there's very tight curfews
Okay.
at these places. So the show's gonna be over at 10 o'clock. Now there might be an after party. I haven't figured out what we're doing yet in terms of that. If we're just all gonna go to Dove, so if there's gonna be something, any sort of official thing, but so like Heaven's Edge, last band, they're probably gonna go on around 8:50, something along those lines, right? Um,
Which is good for a guy like me in my 50s who
yeah,
has kids
listen,
at
it's
home, you
it.
know? So yeah, yeah.
So people probably trying to think how we fit in 12 bands and how we fit in 12 bands in 9 hours. Well, there's gonna be a second stage outside in the back, that they're building, and six of the bands are gonna be out back there. So it's gonna be constant. Once Snow White starts at 1:30, 1:45, there's not gonna be a second of music not being played.
Gotcha.
So it'll be a constant barrage of glam metal madness, stage to
Cannot
stage.
cannot wait for this. New York City's Glam Metal Festival on June 27th in Brooklyn, New York. Uh, two more things before I let you go. Uh, can you run down the entire lineup?
Absolutely.
You have that in front of you somewhere, or maybe you have it
I don't even
memorized.
have it in front of me. One of the skills I have is I do have an elephant memory if I'm not blackout drunk. So, and I'm not blackout drunk right now. So I will tell you them right now. So from the top down, and this is no in particular order. This is a general order, but nothing etched in stone. We got Heaven's Edge, like we mentioned, Ted Poley, Rough House, Wicked, Wanted, who are from Detroit. The Midnight Devils, which is a great, great band from the Nebraska Omaha area. Then we got Breaker from Philadelphia, great newer band. Um, Fantastic front woman. You might have seen her on American Idol. She was actually on American Idol recently.
Really? Wow.
She's awesome as a person too. Ready to Strike and Tykin are both from upstate New York. They'll be coming down with Wicked representing the upstate. I got the band Rattlebones, which some of you might not know. I mean, quite a few people might not know, but they're a solid, solid band from the Pittsburgh area. I met a couple of those guys at M3 last year, and we hit it off. And we were gonna talk about trading shows, and I was like, you know what? Let's get you on this. Why not? It's a good thing to get you on. Snow White, they're brand new. They're actually releasing their debut single. They've been playing now for almost a year, but they've been playing mostly covers. But they're debuting as a single very soon. And I think I got everybody. I did. 12 bands. And
Right
Ferret, of
on.
course.
Yeah.
What would be
Barrett.
the point of doing this if I wasn't, booking it myself, right? If I wasn't gonna get
Yeah.
myself on there. That's the
Right on.
motivation.
And I love what you said that you said something like the festival's a little self-serving because not only are you playing it, you're a fan of these groups, and I think that speaks
Absolutely.
volumes. Uh, where can people buy tickets?
Okay. So there's this new website that the Monarch and Meadows and all those Brooklyn venues use. It's like a new service. KYD Labs. I'm not sure. It's pretty new, but the Monarch and Meadows and that entire group of venues that kind of runs the Brooklyn metal scene, they're using them exclusively now. So that's where tickets are being sold. You can find the ticket link on all the social media. There's a Facebook page and Instagram page for the festival. The ticket links are also available on, the Ferret social media. I'm sure all the bands are sharing it, this and that. And lastly, it's on the Meadows website, the Monarch Meadow. They're excited to have us, and I'm excited to show them. Because I'm gonna be honest, one last thing I want to touch on is this is an important moment for this genre in New York City. Like I mentioned earlier, I do listen to a lot of extreme metal. I do listen to thrash and death metal and black metal and whatnot, which some might realize just based on how heavy Ferret is compared to some of the other glam bands. But I don't want to say that people don't take it seriously, but I feel like the promoters and the venues are not expecting the turnout that I'm expecting. They don't I don't want to say they think it's dead, but they think it's gonna be a bunch of old people from the suburbs coming in once in a blue, and then that's it. No, we're gonna show them that this genre is coming back. There's younger bands, there's younger fans, and all the old timers are coming out. All the people that were there, that back in the day, are gonna be there. And I hope that they're going to be there early to see and be exposed to the younger bands because I think it's really important to expose the original fan base. And I'm not talking about people just like you that live it and breathe it in the industry. I'm talking about the casual fan, like the 50-something-year-old woman from Long Island that's coming for Heaven's Edge. I hope she's there and sees some of the younger bands and likes some of the younger bands. That's my goal. I want to really expose the casual fan to some of these newer bands. And I want the metal scene in Brooklyn and Queens and New York in general to just understand that the genre is back. Maybe take a chance, book some of these bands, book Shark Island, book Babylon AD. People might come out. It's not just extreme metal. Like I said, a lot of these younger kids are into these bands, and I shouldn't necessarily have to drive deep into the Jersey or Delaware suburbs to see them at some ball. Like,
Right
there's
on.
no reason why they can't come. I feel there's ignorance, and I want to squash that ignorance. I want to, bring back glam as a threat. Like in the song Glamdemic. You thought glam metal was yesterday's news? Nah, baby, we're back. And this is
Right
why
on.
this fest is happening.
That's a great place to end it. Just random thoughts though, as we close out the interview with Beau Brent from the great band Ferret. Brooklyn, Queens, even Staten Island for that matter, the boroughs. Uh, that's where metal was. Glam metal, thrash metal. It wasn't Manhattan back in the 80s. It was definitely those boroughs that you mentioned. So, what better place to have the return than in Brooklyn, New York for the New York City Glam Metal Festival, June 27th. I will be there nice and early to catch the whole day. I cannot wait for this, Bo.
Hell yeah, I
London
appreciate it, man.
hosting too. I have to mention that Tommy London, my Sirius XM brother, is a host. So there you go.
All right.
Bo, thank you so much, man, for joining me, Mark Striegel. I do appreciate it, and I wish you the best of luck with this.
All right, thank you very much, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.